Eveline pressed the tip of the needle into the fresh layer of skin, guiding the humming machine slowly. The dim overhead lights of her studio glinted off hundreds of tiny vials displayed on a shelf behind her, each containing a different color of shimmering ink. Her workspace, a narrow room in the back of an unremarkable building, smelled of disinfectant mixed with the tang of electric ozone. From a distance, anyone would assume this was just another tattoo parlor, its artist busy putting the finishing touches on a dragon, koi fish, or whatever mystical symbol clients might request. But a closer look revealed something far more unusual. The inky colors Eveline used shimmered with a subtle glow, as if alive. She had found the formula for these inks buried in a dusty grimoire inherited from her grandmother, along with cryptic instructions. Use with caution. Eveline had tested them on herself first. Just a simple rose behind her left ear. Overnight, the rose moved. It existed on her skin, yet carried a small power of its own. It seemed to drink in moonlight, and sometimes she would wake up with the feeling of vines creeping around her body. With time, she had learned that the strange effects were mild, even occasionally helpful, giving her fleeting surges of energy or calm. She thought it might end there. A curiosity, an heirloom. But curiosity had led her to experiment with bigger, bolder designs, discovering that each ink could house a unique magical property. Then she had begun carefully administering these mystical inks to customers, not as a grand conspiracy, but from a desire to bring art to life. She reasoned that most people's auras would neutralize the magic, and so far that had been true. However, there were select few whose natural inclinations turned the ink into something raw and powerful. Eveline didn't always realize who those clients were until after the fact. With one final flourish, she lifted the tattoo machine. The client, sitting in the high-backed chair, a man in a crisp navy suit, exhaled audibly. He opened his eyes, looking at the fresh tattoo emblazoned on his forearm. A stylized, mountainous landscape done in swirling, verdant greens and... Eveline said softly. For the first day or two, keep it wrapped. Use the ointment I gave you. And take note if you feel any odd sensations. The man nodded, either too tired or in too much pain to respond with words. While he headed toward the door, Eveline's apprentice, Maya, hurried forward, printed aftercare instructions in hand. She had only recently begun working with Eveline, just scratching the surface of what those vials on the shelves truly held. Another satisfied customer, Maya said cheerfully, stepping beside her mentor. He didn't look too spooked by the glimmer in the inks, but you sure you want to keep using that blend? It's stronger than most of the others we've had. I know, Eveline replied, hovering near the shelf of vials, but if one tries to master these inks without respect, they can create chaos. Maya frowned. So maybe we should stop? Eveline gave her a reassuring look. It's not so simple. That power can also help people, or spark something beautiful in them. It's part of my heritage, and I'm sure my grandmother wanted me to carry on her legacy. Maya nodded slowly, though doubt still flickered in her eyes. I believe in your intentions. I just worry about what can happen if someone abuses it. They both turned at the sound of the bell above the front door, a new customer entering. Eveline was about to answer Maya's concern, but a distinctly uneasy presence emanated from the person coming in. A man clad in black from head to toe, carrying a helmet under his arm, stepped into the waiting area. He had a somewhat normal look, slime build, a slight scowl that marked him as someone used to getting his way. The strangest part of his appearance was a faint scar along his jaw that glinted in the overhead light, almost like metal. Afternoon, Eveline greeted. Looking for some new ink? I heard you're the best in the city, he replied, voice low. Word is you can make tattoos, do unusual things. Her breath caught in her chest. Word travels fast in the city, especially among certain circles. For months, rumor had it that Eveline's creations felt alive. So far, the rumor had seemed like idle fascination, something that sparked extra business but no direct danger. This was the first time someone openly acknowledged it. She exchanged a subtle glance with Maya, who stiffened at the tension emanating from this man. "We do quality work," Eveline said carefully, "and I take pride in my unique style. I'd be happy to consult with you on a design." He stepped closer, crossing the threshold to the back studio. "I'm told your unique style can be tapped for more practical uses." "How do you mean?" she asked, feigning ignorance. The man set his helmet aside, leaning it against the wall. The black paint had scratches, revealing silver metal underneath. "I'm not a fool, Ms. Porter. People talk. I'm willing to pay whatever is necessary, as long as you give me something truly special." His eyes flicked toward the shimmering vials of ink. "With a bit of fire to it?" Eveline felt a chill travel down her spine, as though someone had suddenly opened a window on a cold night. She tried to hide her discomfort behind professionalism. "Perhaps a dragon design? Or an elaborate flame motif? We can figure out the best approach." His lips curved. "Yes, a dragon sounds fitting. Fiery, dangerous maybe, and unstoppable. Ink with that kind of energy can have unpredictable results," she warned, "especially if you're not prepared for the responsibility that comes with it." "I'll take my chances," he answered, voice laced with a challenge. Maya cleared her throat, stepping closer to Eveline. "We'll need some time to create a good design, if you'd like to schedule an appointment." "I have all the time in the world," the man interjected, "just not much patience. I'd like to do this tonight." That made Eveline distinctly uncomfortable. Despite her reservations, she knew that refusing outright could provoke trouble. Those who came seeking power so aggressively typically resorted to unsavory methods to get it. "All right," she said finally. "Let me sketch something for you. But I'll warn you, I prefer not to rush. If you want something extraordinary, it's best not to do it on a whim." He smirked and took a seat, crossing his arms. "I can wait until you're ready." Eveline gave a small nod and motioned for Maya to follow her into a side room. Safely away from his prying ears, they spoke in hushed tones. "She's dangerous," Maya said. "You know we can't just hand out the strongest ink to someone like that." "I know," Eveline whispered back, her voice tight. "But if we refuse, he'll find out how else to get it. Perhaps from another source, maybe even forcibly from us." "So what do we do?" asked Maya. Eveline took a deep breath. A plan formed in her mind. Risky, but maybe the only safe approach. "We'll give him a design with a standard magical infusion, but I will modify it, something that might encourage self-restraint. Or backfire if he tries to abuse the power. It won't be perfect. But if there's any chance to keep his newfound abilities in check, we have to try." Maya leaned in, eyes widening. "That's going to be tricky. We've never intentionally sabotaged a design before. Better that than letting him burn a whole city block if that's what he wants," Eveline said, the tension in her voice clear. "I'll do my best to embed constraints into the ink. He might feel strong, but not unstoppable. And hopefully that'll be enough to keep him from doing something catastrophic." Maya exhaled slowly, her expression grim. "All right, let's do it." They emerged from the side room 10 minutes later, carrying fresh sketches. Eveline had drawn a stylized dragon wrapped around the man's forearm, with intricate line work detailing spines, scales, and licks of flame. She informed him it would take some time, and he nodded impatiently. However, as the hours passed and the design took shape on his skin, his attitude gradually shifted into a more respectful hush. The hum of the tattoo machine filled the space, and the luminous ink cast the man's skin in pale reds, oranges, and golds. Midway through, he asked, "You never told me your name." "Eveline," she said, wiping excess ink from his arm. "Eveline Porter. And you?" He paused. "Call me Marcus." She didn't push for a surname or a personal history. Something in his eyes suggested it was best not asked. As the ink sank into his skin, she uttered quiet, rhythmic words in time with the needle's pulse, a subtle chant she had picked up from her grandmother's grimoire. It was meant to weave limitation into the magical design, ensuring the recipient couldn't fully tap into the destructive potential locked within. By the end of the session, the dragon coiled majestically, its scales shimmering with potential. Marcus stood up, carefully examining his arm under the overhead light. An almost reverent look stole across his features. "It's perfect," he whispered. "I feel something coursing through me." Evelyn pocketed her pigment bottles, her insight telling her to remain cautious. "Remember the aftercare, and remember it takes time for the tattoo to settle in your aura. Don't force it." Marcus gave a short laugh. "Don't worry, Eveline. This is exactly what I wanted." Over the next few weeks, Evelina noticed unusual events around the city, stories that might be connected to Marcus's new gift. News reports began circulating about unexplained fires, always confined to a single building or alleyway. A wave of whispered rumors pointed toward a figure clad in black, appearing in the moments before disaster struck. Despite her attempts to push these ominous signs aside, a knot of guilt tied itself tighter in Eveline's stomach. One night, she and Maya closed the shop late. The moon was high, blurred by haze that smothered the streetlights. They locked the door behind them, weighed down by the tension surrounding them for days. "I think it's time we try to find him," Maya said, glancing warily at flickering neon signs down the block. "He's obviously testing that power. Maybe you can talk him down." Eveline bit her lip. She had debated confronting Marcus, but the idea of willingly walking toward danger turned her insides cold. Yet the alternative, doing nothing, wasn't an option. "We'll go to the last place the news reported a fire," she said at last. "He might linger around his handiwork." As they started down the sidewalk toward the scorched convenience store 2 blocks away, Eveline's heart pounded like a war drum. The reflection of burnt metal glistened under the streetlights when they arrived. Yellow caution tape flapped in the wind, keeping back curious onlookers. The store's inside was blackened with soot and dusted with ash. The intense heat had completely melted metal shelves and fused broken glass to the floor tiles. A single police cruiser idled nearby, an officer dozing behind the wheel. "Let's see if we can sense anything," Eveline murmured. She slowly approached the boarded-up entrance, straining to detect leftover energy from an arcane source. Sure enough, as she neared the perimeter, a faint prickle ignited along her forearms. A swirl of intangible power hung in the air, reminiscent of the flame-laced design she had etched into Marcus's skin. He had been here. Maya inhaled sharply. "I can feel it too." They stood there for several moments, waiting, watching. "What now?" Just then a shudder ran through Eveline's spine. She turned around. There, leaning against a lamppost, was Marcus. The same black outfit, arms crossed casually. In the faint glow, they could see the swirling shape of the dragon tattoo on his forearm, seemingly alive, flickering with orange under his skin. He looked almost bored, as though he had been waiting for them. "Eveline," he said in a tone that was oddly warm. "I had a feeling you'd show up." She fought to keep her composure, stepping forward. "You've been causing trouble, Marcus. People are getting hurt because of these fires," he shrugged. "They were just experiments, testing the boundaries. You made something powerful, Eveline, yet I can sense constraints, like chains around this power. And that's not what I asked for. I warned you magic demands responsibility." She took another step forward, placing herself between Maya and this dangerous man. "If you keep pushing it, you'll only hurt more innocent people, and it won't end well for you." Marcus smirked, raising his arm. The dragon shimmered with fierce reds and golds. "Oh, I think not. You see, I've been working to break those constraints, and little by little it's working." A faint glow emerged around his hand. Eveline felt searing heat wash over her. Though no flame was visible yet, with a surge of courage she lifted her chin. You don't understand what you're releasing. The moment you fully unlock that dragon's potential, it will feed on your spirit, devouring your sanity for sustenance." He just laughed. "We'll see about that." Before Eveline or Maya could react, he reached out with his glowing arm. The air wavered, and a burst of flickering flame erupted in mid-air, roaring toward them. Eveline flung herself sideways, barking a few foreign words under her breath, a conjurer's chant. A swirl of violet sparks blossomed from her hands, forming a makeshift shield. The flame crashed into the barrier. Heat pulsed through Eveline's arms. She clenched her jaw, focusing all of her will to keep the shield intact. Marcus took a few steps closer, peering at her with dark fascination. Maya, in the meantime, scrambled behind Eveline, fumbling in her bag for something. She extracted a small glass phial of swirling blue ink, a color attuned to watery energy. She gestured to her mentor, who gave an imperceptible nod, still holding the shield. Maya quickly popped the cork from the phial, dipping her finger into the glowing liquid and tracing a quick symbol in the air. A shimmering wave of water manifested. Surging forward like a living curtain, it collided with Marcus's flame, neutralizing the crackling heat. Marcus staggered back, expression twisting with frustration. He attempted to push the dragon's power further, but for a brief moment it hesitated, flickering uncertainly under the constraints Eveline had imbued. Anger now played across his features. "You can't contain this forever. I'll tear down every limitation you put on me." With that, he spun on his heel and propelled himself into the fading darkness of the side street, the power swirling around his arm like a living flame. By the time they scrambled to follow, he had vanished into the night. In the days that followed, Marcus's violent demonstrations tapered off. The city fell into a tense lull, as if it held its breath. Eveline recognized this standoff for what it was. He was searching for the means to break the magical constraint. She spent evenings poring over her grandmother's grimoire, flipping through pages detailing older forms of ink-based arcana. They talked about fail-safe glyphs that a skilled mage tattooist could embed as last-ditch efforts to subdue uncontrolled powers, but the instructions were cryptic, incomplete. "He's probably trying to replicate your inks," Maya said one late afternoon in the back studio as she organized half-filled vials. "If he figures out how to break the constraints, we'll face something unstoppable." Eveline nodded, flipping a tattered page with trembling fingers. Smeared ink revealed a sigil that shimmered faintly every time she moved the book into the light. "We'll have to be ready. There's a binding mark here, a synergy of symbols from multiple magical traditions. The book says it can anchor destructive energies, but only if it's tattooed onto the host's skin." Maya's eyes widened. "Meaning we'd have to re-ink him?" She nodded. "Exactly. That's the only way to stop him from unleashing the dragon's full fire. But we can't just walk up and say, 'Hey, let me tattoo this on you.'" Her stomach clenched at the improbability. "We have to corner him somehow, force him into a position where he has no choice." "That means we'll need help," Maya offered. Eveline paused, remembering that they had a few acquaintances in the city who were versed in minor arcane arts, folks who might assist if the threat was dire enough. "Get our circle together," Eveline said decisively. "We'll set a trap. Marcus won't suspect we can muster enough manpower to stand against him." A week later, dusk painted the sky in smoky purples as a hush descended upon a deserted courtyard. Cracked pavement, graffiti-laden walls, and a single broken street lamp provided the backdrop. A flicker of movement passed across a rooftop. Then two figures appeared near a row of trash bins, both clad in black hoods, members of Eveline's circle who practiced illusions and concealment. Maya was there as well, crouched behind a stack of crates with a protective sphere of watery energy ready at her fingertips. Eveline stood quietly in the center of the courtyard, wearing simple jeans and a leather jacket. She had no illusions, no flashy magical auras dancing around her. She wanted to appear alone, unguarded, an easy target. A few heartbeats later, Marcus strode into view. His eyes quickly scanned the courtyard, searching for signs of an ambush. The dragon on his forearm was far more vibrant than before. almost luminous. Whatever progress he had made unraveling the constraints was evident in the swirling embers that licked across his skin. "So," he said, voice echoing off grimy walls, "this is the big showdown, then?" Evelyn forced a calm expression. "I want to settle this, Marcus," he chuckled, taking a few steps closer. "You should have left well enough alone. I've already found some interesting law that confirms your little constraints can be severed." He raised his arm, letting the swirling dragon flicker with arcs of heat. "Watch!" With a twist of his hand, flames erupted, dancing around him in a fiery corona. The roar of heat battered Evelyn's senses, and she sensed her companions tense. She held up a hand, signaling them to wait. The instant they revealed themselves, Marcus might unleash something catastrophic. "You don't need to go down this path," Evelyn said. "The more power you wrest from the dragon, the more it'll drain your life. You'll become a vessel for raging fire." He tilted his head, mocking. "We all feed on something." Now that his energy flared, Evelyn spotted an opening. The edges of the swirling flame flickered with instability. The seal she had placed was failing, but not gone. With each step, she could see the constraints warring with his will. She took one more step closer. "You want to push your luck?" Marcus snarled. "Fine." He launched a torrent of fire at Evelyn. Murmuring an incantation, she summoned arcs of protective ether. A glimmering shield arose, splitting the massive flame into tongues that licked harmlessly along the edges. Her knees trembled from the strain his power had grown. The tattoo had become dangerously potent. That was the cue for the others. From the rooftop, illusions snapped into place, conjuring giant overlapping circles of flickering lights that disoriented Marcus. From the crates, Maya stood, summoning a swirl of liquid energy that coiled around him, ready to drown his flames. Another figure, an older man named Gerard, who specialized in earthen wards, slid into the courtyard, chanting softly to create a ring of stone that molded from the cracked concrete itself, aiming to box Marcus in. Marcus roared with fury. Flames whipped around wildly, fighting illusions with a feral strength. The watery tendrils vaporized in a hiss of steam as soon as they grazed him. The ring of stone started to crack from the intense heat. Evelyn saw that the illusions faltered every time the flames surged. She clenched her teeth. They were losing ground. Marcus's defiance crashed against their combined efforts. Still, if they could hold him for just a minute longer, Evelyn could attempt the binding mark. She clutched her grandmother's grimoire with trembling hands, flipping to the dog-eared page bearing the synergy glyph. She had practiced the design, memorized it until she could trace it in her sleep. Now it was just a matter of forcing the mark onto his skin. Raising her voice above the roar, she commanded the illusions to close up. The shimmering patterns thickened, forming a dome of distorted light. Marcus snarled, throwing everything he had at the barrier. Flames battered the illusions, fracturing them, but for an instant he was contained. Evelyn seized the moment. She lunged forward, brandishing a small tattoo needle dipped in an inky black solution brimming with the synergy glyph. If she could make the smallest mark on his skin, the rest would unfold itself. He saw her coming, of course, and threw an arc of fire that singed the edges of her jacket. Pain lanced through her, but she kept going, chanting the same rhythmic lines from the grimoire. Her words merged with the illusions. Reality wavered, the courtyard shifting into a haze of shifting neon brilliance. Then she was face to face with him, the flicker of flame in his eyes, the stench of burning leather filling her nose. Before he could pull back, she pressed the needle into his forearm, perfectly overlapping a gap in the dragon's design. She stabbed him with the synergy glyph, driving an inky thread into his flesh. A spark of arcane force exploded outward. Marcus roared, the dragon blazing. Evelyn felt a wave of scorching air fling her back. She slammed into the pavement, wind knocked out of her. Maya cried out from somewhere behind her. The illusions shuddered, flickering like a glitching screen on the brink of collapse. But Evelyn had done it. She could sense it, The synergy glyph was sinking into Marcus's aura, weaving itself around the base of the dragon's power. The roaring flames began to sputter violently, as if torn by an internal struggle. Marcus stumbled backward, eyes wide with agony. He tried to conjure fire, but sparks fizzled halfway out of his arm, devouring themselves in a swirl of black smoke. Seeing their chance, the others tightened their illusions into a final binding ring around him. A swirling prism of color hemmed him in. Maya quickly conjured water again, though it manifested more gently this time, swirling around his feet to keep him from lunging. Gerard's earthen ring reformed, though it no longer needed to contain a blazing inferno, simply the thrashing man in the center of it all. Biting back the pain in her ribs, Eveline forced herself to stand. "Marcus," she gasped, "listen to me. That glyph is binding you. You can't break it, not without tearing your soul apart. Let it go. The dragon might have given you power, but it was always going to destroy you." He stared at her with a venomous glare, face contorted. Flames danced across his eyes, but the swirling glow around his forearm was rapidly dimming. At last, he dropped to his knees. "You wretched!" His voice trailed off in a groan. The synergy glyph etched itself deeper, the black lines crawling to integrate with the existing design until it formed a single swirling pattern. The dragon's ember-like hues faded to mere cinders. Caution in every step, Eveline approached him. The illusions parted just enough for her to move closer. "I don't want to see you completely destroyed," she said quietly. "If you cooperate, I can help you adapt to this so it won't consume you." Marcus, breathing heavily, stared at the ground. The malice had not entirely left his expression. "All I wanted was to rise above mediocrity," he rasped, bitterness saturating his voice. "I was tired of being powerless in this city." Eveline understood. The city was harsh, full of corruption. Yet there were other ways to find strength. True power isn't fire or lightning. It's knowing your limits. Knowing how to grow without destroying yourself or those around you. Marcus pursed his lips, refusing to answer. His shoulders finally slumped in exhausted resignation. They'd kept Marcus in a carefully warded room for a month, under Eveline's close supervision. The synergy glyph remained stable, preventing any uncontrollable flare-ups. Without the fuel of rage and ambition, the fiery tattoo no longer fed on him like a starving beast. Eveline used simpler inks to add reinforcing runes atop the synergy glyph, making it an anchor. A living reminder of what destructive magic can do when unleashed carelessly. During that time, Eveline taught Marcus breathing techniques and spells to siphon off the excess heat. He remained guarded, but in fleeting moments, she saw flickers of gratitude, or at least acceptance. Maya assisted, sometimes reading from the ancient grimoire, ensuring the new magical lines in the design stayed intact. Although many at the shop questioned giving Marcus a second chance, Eveline remained resolute in her decision. She had created the fire that now lived in his skin. It was only right that she help him handle it. Slowly, rumors died down. The city quieted. The scorched buildings gradually replaced or repaired. People stopped whispering about a figure with a flaming dragon tattoo, and Eveline breathed easier at last, back to inking new clients with a renewed sense of caution. Each flick of the needle reminded her how easily an art form meant to celebrate individuality could morph into something dangerous. Late one evening, she found Marcus sitting in the back courtyard, behind the tattoo shop, gazing at the hush of the city skyline. He lifted his arm, looking at the dragon that now lay dormant across his skin. The synergy glyph integrated with it like a subtle collar around the beast's neck, holding it in check. "Does it hurt?" Eveline asked, stepping beside him. He considered the question a moment. "Less than it used to. The urges come and go. But the binding keeps them from burning me up." She nodded, silent. The moonlight reminded her of that first rose tattoo behind her ear, which had changed her life in ways she never predicted. "Hate me if you like," she said softly, "but keep the dragon in control, or you'll risk losing yourself." He met her eyes, something less malevolent there now. He gave a slow nod. Neither apology nor complete forgiveness hung in the air, but something akin to understanding passed between them. Two souls bound by scarred magic. A cautionary tale of the power that ink could hold when mixed with arcane secrets. Standing side by side under the moon, they inhaled the city's night air, heavy with possibility, laced with the quiet hum of passing cars. Eveline silently vowed to keep the knowledge of her grandmother's inks guarded, ensuring no further tragedies were unleashed. Because in a city like this, the difference between harmless magic and devastating power could be as thin as the line of a needle pressed against flesh, carrying spells that lurked just beneath the skin.